But who better than me?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another casual stream with your host, Face the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. How are we doing? There's some stuff to talk about, and I've got some free time this weekend because there won't be a basis picks. And there's not really going to be a weekend wrap either. So we're going to get into several topics throughout the week. We're going to do more videos of the normal variety episodes, etc. Yes, there is boxing on this weekend, but most of it, none of you are going to know about. So I'm going to just take the opportunity to enjoy the fights I want to enjoy, including the fights tonight, early hours of the morning. We'll sort of enjoy those, but I might give my take towards the end of this show regarding those fights, like the Jared Hurd fight, the Nazarena Romero fight on the weekend down in I think it's in Argentina. Will be taking place on the DAZN app as well. Obviously the Pro Box card tonight. A few other little fights here and there I might talk about. But yeah, outside of that, we are here to talk about ultimately what's going to be taking place on the undercard of Riyadh season, Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. So with that kind of being said, just going to let the list populate a little bit. I'll be chatting to people shortly. Don't want to customize that. So let me see, can I grab a background on this? No, can't add another tab to this. Alright, I'm gonna. Before I get into that, people, let me tell you something that happened the other day, right? Which I'm very, very annoyed by. Nothing to do with boxing, so I'm putting it out there from here. So I ended up in one of those, those parking bays where it says, from 7 to 7, can't park here except for the hours of 10 to 4, right? So I've parked in there. I've been advised to park in there by someone who ironically ain't gonna now be paying the fine, but I parked in there. The sign, which actually tells you that you can't park there, was covered by trees. So you can't see it from the road when you're driving in. I was with a disabled person. There was a disabled badge in the car, all that stuff. So I'm expecting more if anyone comes by, they're going to see disabled. You're allowed to park where you're allowed to park for 3 hours. I've left there. I've got the ticket. About 3 weeks later, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I've challenged the ticket online, but for some reason, my appeal hasn't gone through. So I've then got the charge certificate now, where they're trying to charge me triple the price I could have paid if I just paid normally, because they never received my challenge. I've given them all the evidence as to the fact I've tried to challenge this, but obviously it doesn't give you any, there was no way to like screenshot on the day or whatever. So now they've rejected my appeal for late challenge or for late notice, and they're saying I've got 10 days to be able to prove or to be able to tell them why they should reconsider their opinion, but I've got no physical evidence to obviously be able to tell them that and to tell them why, apart from possibly even me going back to like show, look, this is covered up, etc. It doesn't escape the late challenge. So right now they're trying to get me on the hook for £240, just so, like, tell me if that ain't nasty work. Yeah. Anyway, let me get into the chat. Let me see who's around, and then we're gonna talk about this card now. Unfortunately, I've got the graphic, but it won't let me overlay it because I don't have the right level of StreamYard, which I will be fixing shortly in the next month or so. Guys, bear with me. But yeah, shout out to man like Mulla Mulla in the house. I saw your quote tweet earlier on. Bless ups to you. Haja Selassie as well. Shout out to you. Dan the man, SC15, hardest working guy on Twitex. Appreciate you for being here as always. Philip Anson in the building. Yeah, I knew about the Floyd Mayweather exhibition, but that's, we're not really going to be talking about that. And John Gotti the third. Jonah 31, shout out. Untraceable in the building as well. Appeal. Yeah, look, I appealed once. I'm going to appeal again just to try and extend the time. But ultimately, I said, look, I'm prepared to pay the £80 because I was technically in the wrong, even though your sign is not visible to the to the public when they are driving. And I thought that disabled badge had the mystical powers, but they was like, we ain't trying to hear that. So yeah, shout out to North Bank Brennan in the building as well. Salute to you, Brendan. I Lucan in the building. That's why I'm moving out of London. Yeah, man, look, I hear you. If I didn't love my area so much, I'd be considering it. And at the moment, just because where I live economically, it doesn't actually matter where I kind of move to. Like I'm still be paying pretty much the same at the minute, just based on certain circumstances. So I'm here for the time being. But anytime I'm driving, best believe I'm never driving into London. I'm always driving to the outskirts, or I'm driving around. I never go in London unless it's like late night, early hours of the morning, and even then it's risky because them 20 mile an hour, people still be driving as if it's like peak time in the day, 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. Nasty work. Shout out to SWJ in the building as well. Toby Bartlett, shout out to you. Thank you very much for being in attendance with all the congestion, charge zone and ULEZ. Yeah, look, I hear you. But like I said, luckily for where I am, the ULEZ is one thing, but that's fine. My car's ULEZ compliant, but I don't drive that way. Like, I'm in the southeast. I travel the south, like deep south. And if anything, I'll take the M25. I'll take like the A20 all the way around, and I go around the city if I need to go to north, or if I need to go like to Birmingham or Manchester, Luton, anywhere else. Like, I don't drive through the city unless it's late night. So yeah. But look, with that being said, that's enough car talk and enough of my woes and my troubles. Let's get to why we're really here. I got some thoughts. Now again, I don't have the entire card in front of me, or at least I can't pull it up on the screen as much as I would like to, which is very annoying. But let me see if I can add 1 second, let me see here. Okay, no, it's not gonna let me. All right, well look, I remember all the fights except the very first one. Okay, I think the guy's name's Alake, who I'm assuming is a prospect. Okay, so I'm not gonna grade that fight. By the way, yes, thank you, Toby. Everyone listening, do hit the like button. It is appreciated. Well, it will give me temporary happiness for the duration of the stream. But yeah, so ignoring the first fight, bear in mind though, what I will say is, I understand obviously you got to promote your, the Saudi stars, or the sort of the Muslim community, the whatever, the Arabian community. So I don't really have an issue with it, but it's a nothing fight that's not really, I guess it's not particularly necessary. But cool, we'll leave that one. After that, we've got Sky Nicholson versus Raven Chapman. To me, great fight. I've been waiting to see that fight for a little while. You guys know that I'm a very big Raven Chapman supporter, alum, aficionado, fellow Capricorn, love her to bits. Every time I see Raven and the team, it's all love. So biasly, I am backing and pulling for Raven to win that fight. I'm not giving my prediction yet, because remember, I might be backing her to win. That doesn't necessarily mean I am picking her to win. There's a very, very big difference. My words mean a lot. So when that video comes out, I will give you guys my definitive opinion. But it's a great fight. I know there's going to be a lot of chat to women's boxing on the card and rare. Like, no, as far as I'm concerned, like, if they're giving me value for money, I don't care if it's the men or the women. Like, a good fight's a good fight. Just to correct you, Philip, it's the first women's title fight in Saudi Arabia. I know you technically said first women's fight on the Riyadh season card, but yeah, just so to make sure that the people don't mistake that. It's the second fight in Saudi Arabia with the women, but the first women's title fight in Saudi Arabia. But yes, the first women's fight on a Riyadh season card. Hot prize, shout out to you. So yeah, no issues with that fight. It's long overdue. I know that they would probably want bigger. They would probably want maybe one of the big spectacle fights there, but these two are going to end up being the future of the featherweight division and the super featherweight division at some point. So it makes total sense. Shout out to Aaron Daly in the building. Get yourself up to Brum, best city in the world, second only to Rotterdam. I highly disagree, Aaron. Look, as much as I end up in Brum a lot more than I should. For someone that really don't particularly like the Midlands that much. I'm more of a Nottingham person. If I'm gonna be real, I prefer Nottingham as a city. But I've got a lot of friends from Brum, like who I love and respect dearly. But y'all know, and I've only gotten used to the accent now. It's taken me well over 30 years to get used to the accent to the point where it doesn't annoy the hell out of me when I'm speaking to someone. So I can't live amongst that. I can't live there 24/7. It has to be breaks. I can go there, I can come back, take a break. Or I'll chat to my Brum friends that are in London where the accent's been diluted a bit. And I know it's not always just the Brum. I know you guys kind of get lumbered in with the Black Country and everything else. So it's not just, it's not necessarily Birmingham. It might be like a Raleigh Regis or a Wolverhampton or a Dudley. But unfortunately, you're all Brum as far as we're concerned. So yeah, but no, shout out to all my peoples from Brum, Midlands, or Wolverhampton, everywhere else. Like I said, Nottingham's my place though. I like Nottingham in that side. Mula. In terms of boxing, as Clarissa fought there as well. Yes, she did in the MMA. I remember that. I remember her gassing out against a novice. That girl was like a wrestler. She was a bit of wrestling and maybe some, I think, judo, and Clarissa still was unable to knock her out. But I remember that was a fun fight. Shout out to Emma, 350-50, debatable, 3 mismatches and a random fight, not the best. Apart from my accent, Brum's the best. London's too fast for me. I've got family in Croydon and Thornton Heath. Everybody is moody and 80% of South Gal are mad. Yeah, but you know what? They make up for it in looks, so you just have to accept it. You got. There's a trade-off somewhere, and you just got to decide where you're going to pick your battles. But as I said, shout out to Brum. I do. I've grown to love it a lot more than I used to, or tolerate it, however you want to put that. But yeah. But funny enough, I will actually be up there in a few weeks, I believe. So yeah, shout out. SWJ, shout out to you as well. It's got the worst Riyadh card since Fury and Garnu. I'm going to get back to the card in a moment, and shout out to Star Fox WR45E. North Bank, I'm going to speak your one on. Actually, you know what? Let me do it now. Apart from Wardley versus Clark, or big fans of the female game like you, but it's not a single fight actually calling for. Again. Yeah, no, I hear you. And that's weird because they give you a lot of fights that are good fights. You're like, I never really thought of this as a fight. It kind of works, but I wasn't calling for that. No one was begging for the fight, which then sort of makes the the pay-per-view element a bit of a but yeah, look, so let's get back to the card. So where did we get to? So Chapman and Sky Nicholson, brilliant, had no issues with that fight. After that, you had, I believe, if I'm correct, I think I'm missing a fight, so someone's going to have to tell me afterwards, but you had Jai Patel and Jack Massey, which I think is a decent fight. Look, Jack Massey is the current European cruiserweight champion. He's beaten some good level guys to do it. It's a keep busy fight more than anything. Jai Patel called out, he called out Chris Billam-Smith. Chris Billam-Smith said he needed more time. I agree with Jai when he said, well, look, hold on a minute. You haven't had a fight since, when was it, June? Like, you knew that there's a possibility. We've been calling your name since like June, like July. How would you not be ready for October? Like, there's no reason for you. And at the time when he said it, I think that was like 11 weeks to go. So what were you doing for the other 5 weeks prior to that? So I do agree with Jai Patel when he said that, look, you could have had this fight. But Jai's also said he wants to take this fight. He wants to fight him. He said he'll fight him in December when Chris is ready. So if that's the case, you know, if he can get through Jack Massey with no injuries or no problems, then it makes perfect sense to go again and to go into December. So I haven't really got a problem with that. And Jack Massey, you know, he's no great boxer, but he's durable, he's tough. He'll give it a go and he'll put on a scrap. So as a keep busy and just as a card filler, I can't really complain with that fight. Then you've got what fights have you got? Then obviously we got you know, Wardley and Clark 2. Brilliant fight. There's nothing I'm gonna say. Oh, Ben Whittaker, that's the fight I forgot. Ben Whittaker versus Liam. What's his name? Is it Liam? Someone told me Liam's surname. I forgot his name. I know someone's gonna put it in the chat for me. Liam Cameron. That's it. Thank you very much, Emma. Yes, Liam Cameron. Right, that fight. Here's my issue with that fight, and you guys know I'm big. You know, I'm a big supporter of Ben. Like, I'm high on him as a fighter. I think he's got all the tools, all the talent. I know me and his dad get on really well, and me and Ben get on really well. Personally, I don't think this fight should have been on Riyadh season. Ben Shalom was talking the other day about, you know, them having like a homecoming, or Ben Whittaker having a headline fight in sort of Wolverhampton. I know they've got that little ballroom that they had one of the Tyler Denny fights last year, which was a really nice looking ballroom. But I thought, all right, you put him there, or you maybe put him in one of the arenas in Birmingham, and you just have, you know, maybe like the what's it called? Anyway, on one of the arenas in Birmingham, or you put him in that ballroom and you just make an event of it over there, but let him headline. Him versus Liam Cameron, yes, it's a quote-unquote step up for him in terms of a step up in opposition from who he has faced, but it's not a significant fight to be on a card like this. I'm sorry, that to me is a Saturday night events card or a Friday night events card in the UK, in the Midlands, where you get the local crowd out and you sort of build him as the big local star. Because a lot of his fights thus far have been in London, they've been elsewhere apart from Birmingham. Like, he needs that little homecoming. That's where that fight should have been. So I don't really agree with that fight being on the card. I'm not gonna, for lack of a better word, hate on Ben getting his money, because I love to see that, and I know he's going to go far, and I'm wishing him every success in the actual event itself. But in terms of that fight, that didn't need to be on the card. I'm sorry. So that's my opinions on that one. Then we got obviously Fabio Wardley versus Fraser Clark 2. Nothing to say. Brilliant fight. Should it be on Riyadh? Should that not have been another big night at the O2 or Portland Road or something like that? Maybe. Big British fight. But you know what? Fabio fought David at Lillier on the... He fought David on the Riyadh season card out there as well. Didn't change the quality of that fight. So no issues. Then we've got Chris Eubank Jr. against Camille Seremeta. Look, no issues with Chris Eubank Jr. I think he's wildly entertaining, all that good stuff. But why is he on this card? Why is he on this card with a tune-up fight? This isn't a credible, it's not a 50-50, it's not even a remotely competitive fight. It's a nothing fight. Unless Chris has regressed so much to the point that he doesn't deserve a payday again, this is a nothing fight. There's no reason for this fight to be on this card. This is the type of fight that should have been, again, on one of those Sky Sports Friday night cards. You bundle it with the Ben Whittaker fight, and you, like I said, the fight you do in the Midlands, this is just a quick get back fight, and you bundle it there, and that's where you put it. You leave it there. There's no reason for this to be on the card, and there's no reason for that to be on the card third from top. Really? When you've got legit world title fights underneath that, you've got a guy like Jair Patel who's basically got an entire nation behind him, to a, like, you know, to maybe not as much as someone like Tim Tszyu, but the whole nation of Australia. Sky Nicholson's the same thing. They're all going to be tuning in for this fight because this is, you know, these are their peoples. And then you've got them underneath Chris Eubank Jr., who's fighting a knockover job, who's had 2 relatively decent fights in his whole career and was knocked out in both of them. Jaime Munguia and Triple G. Now, okay, there's no shame to be knocked out by Triple G or Jaime Munguia, but that's not the company you need to be putting yourself in to be third from top on the Riyadh season card. That's nasty work. I can't support that fight. It's horrendous. That should not be on the card. Ben Shalom, I'm not gonna lie, respect to Ben, because he's finding a way to, you know, to nick a living at the point, because these fights are supposed to be over at Sky, and he's managing to pedal like some of the biggest shit over to Riyadh season right now. That's actually impressive, and I'm gonna have to watch how I talk about Ben from now on, because he's clearly a lot more smooth and suave than I actually thought he was. Because the way man got that onto Riyadh, yeah, he's definitely a lot smarter and a lot more switched on to the game than I gave him credit for. And maybe his appearance on the Pain game the other day probably should have told me that, because he came with some certain receipts. So you know what? If anything, I just gotta say salute to Ben Shalom, because he's done a magnificent job to get certain fighters in positions that they should not be in, or on cards that they should not be in at this stage of their career, or in the levels of fights that they're fighting. Now, one of the big contentious ones is you've got Shakur Stevenson against Joe Cordina. Apart from the fact that Joe Cordina doesn't deserve a world title shot at 135 after being knocked out at 130 in his last fight, I don't actually hate the fight. Stylistically, it's essentially a pure boxer versus a boxer puncher / pure boxer. I think it will be a good fight. I think Joe Cordina will show himself to be a much better suited to being at 135. That is where he used to campaign before he decided to move down to 130. So I reckon that in itself will be a better option for him. What I don't like about that fight, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Tony Sims is a great fighter, a great trainer, but he's left Tony Sims. So on the eve of your quote-unquote biggest fight that you can have against like the most credible name that you can have, you have no trainer and you're shopping around for a new trainer. And the fight card is 9 weeks away. That suggests to me that this is a cash out. Purely because there's no new trainer you're going to get is going to get you doing the things that I guess you want to be changing or doing in 8 weeks. Like it's not going to, especially like I said, the biggest fight, this isn't you're coming back to a tune-up with a new trainer. You're coming back to a world title fight against one of the best technically sound boxers in the world. That's the only reason for me to believe that this fight is not a good fight. In terms of their styles, it's a good fight and an intriguing fight to watch. But in terms of the surrounding it, being knocked out in the last fight, leaving your trainer, so clearly you ain't got to pay the same fee to that trainer that you would, the new one that you would set the deal up with. All of that leads me to believe this is nothing more than an extra showcase for Shakur Stevenson. Maybe a way for him to be a bit more entertaining and to change the perspective of people's opinions on him. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. Main event, obviously, it's Beterbiev, it's Bivol, like 10 out of 10 type fight, no issues, no complaints with that one. So if I'm going to grade this card, right? So the very first fight, again, the guy, Alarke, whatever his name is, apologies, I'm not going to grade that fight. Never seen either of them. It's probably just like a step-up fight for one of the new Saudi kids. Fine. Then you've got Raven Chapman and Sky Nicholson. Now for that one, so we're going to grade these out of 10. I'm giving that an 8. In terms of competitiveness, I think it's an 8 in terms of where they are in their careers and in terms of how I see that fight playing out. In terms of my anticipation or my overall feelings for that fight, I'm giving that one an 8. Ben Whittaker against Liam Cameron, I'm giving a 5.5. If it was its own fight on its own card, then I'd probably give it like a 6 or a 7, based on, you know, the two of them. But yeah, in terms of for being on this card, it's a 5.5. It shouldn't be there, and I've said that. You know, if I get flack for that, cool, I'll take it, but it shouldn't be there. Jai Opetaia versus Jack Massey, 6.5. I give it 6.5. Jack Massey he's done enough to earn that spot, although he hasn't really been as active as I would have liked. But he's the European cruiserweight champion, an IBO European, an IBF European, a legit European champion. He's been in there with some good names. Went the distance with Joseph Parker, beat Isaac Chamberlain. Like, you know, none of the other champions want to fight him. Well, you've got Noel Gavor. Obviously, he's got Ryan Rosicki as a mandatory that he has to fight. Zerdo Ramirez is also on the hook for a mandatory right now, and Crispin and Smith didn't want it, so no unifications at this point. So yeah, as a keep busy, that's cool. 6.5. From there, you've got Wardley versus Clark 2, 9. In terms of the fight, I don't know if it can be as good as the first one was, or as exciting or tense, because we've seen it, so we kind of know what to expect. The only thing that would be different is a knockout, or multiple knockdowns. But in terms of, you know, blood and guts, I don't know if it can live up to the you know, the feelings and the emotions of the first one. But I'm giving it a 9. Great fight on the card. Eubank Jr. versus Therameta, 4. Actually, 4's being too generous. 3. It's a 3. And the fact that it's the third from top currently on the list, the card, no, can't accept that. Awful work, nasty work. Like, Turkey Al-Sheikh needs to sort that one out. Then we've got Shakur Stevenson and Joe Cordina. If it wasn't for the fact that I think he's cashing out, I would have given it a 7. But because I think it's a cash out, I'm dropping it down to a 6. So yeah, I think that's a 6 fight. Yes, I think he's going to give it a go, but ultimately I feel like he's just going to be content to go the distance. I don't really think he's going to try to fight the fight that he needs to fight in order to win. So yeah, I think that's going to be a 6. Main event, 10 out of 10. No more needs to be said. That's my thoughts on the card. Give your score predictions down in the comments, and I'll read those in a moment. Let me get back to some of the comments for the people, as obviously I want to respect all of you guys. Right, so let's see where we got to. Right, so after all right, so Batista Diablo, shout out to you. Thank you very much for being in the building. You just got here, smash the like, 100%. Thank you very much. James in the building, shout out to you. Toby Bartlett, Aaron, I think it's gonna be a great fight, but splitting from Sims. So okay, yeah. So again, if he didn't split, I would have given it a 7, but I think it's a 6 because it feels a bit cash out-y at this moment. Shout out to Emma. I love reading Emma's comments because they are always so brutal. Boxer shot themselves in the foot just to say they're involved with Saudi, in my opinion. 3 headline fights gone like that. They have no schedule and barely do 1 show a month. Bang. So you basically said everything I said, just in a more succinct way. Like, I appreciate you, Emma. Please never leave the channel. Like, I need you to stay here. And as SWJ says, great point. Diablo, Chris gonna fight with the collars up. I mean, that might be the only way I boost the fight up to a 4.5. If he comes in with the collars, maybe. What happened to Adam Azim versus Harlem Eubank as well? That was announced in the ring. Like, well, that's the thing. It was spoken about in the ring. Nothing was signed. But now, obviously, when we put that word to Ben Shalom when we're talking about ducking the Dalton Smith fight, you can't say that you had better options or that the team had better options, because clearly they didn't. Where's this fight? Hot Pie, shout out to you. Wardley Clark deserves a proper crowd. Saudi atmospheres are dead watching on telly. Um, well, you know what? From everything that I've heard, and a lot of people have said that Fury Usyk had a very, very good crowd in there. Like it was a big crowd, and it was a big crowd, and there was a lot of noise and a lot of atmosphere. So if they can get a crowd similar to that, then cool. And maybe you have to have it in a different type of arena. You can't really have it in the big football stadium that they have out there. You probably need to have it in one of the more enclosed ones where the sound sort of like doesn't travel and it sort of just stays in that circumference. Maybe that's what you kind of need. But yeah, I agree. That's a fight that should have been back in the UK, but clearly either Sky didn't want to pay for those fights, or Boxer didn't have the budget for those fights, or the fighters just realized, well, look, I'll make a lot more money out here, which, okay, fine. Emma, Eubank alone is why I'm not buying the pay-per-view. May as well slap me. Shout out to Skyliner, the editor. Ben Shalom is always scheming. I mean, look, he's definitely on his Rick Ross, and his French Montana and Drake on this one, because yeah, he stays scheming, but the schemes is working. Like I can appreciate the dastardliness of this move. I've got to be honest, I have to appreciate it, because there's nothing else I can do apart from appreciate the level of nasty work that he's provided us with this one. Emma salutes this. Yeah, I agree. Ben thinking about his business first again, in my opinion, certainly not thinking about Sky. Well, we've heard the stories about that Sky contract, so you never know. I hate Toby, long time no see. Yeah, okay. Ben Shalom's getting Turkey to pay for a Eubank Gimme fight. I mean, like I said, it's exceptional work. I really have to applaud the level of dastardly. Like, that's a Dick Dastardly move right there. I'm sure he must have watched Wacky Races as a child, because that's all it can be. Emma, Cordina left 135 because they were too big for him. Luckily for him, it looks like Shakur doesn't hit the hardest. Yeah, and he's not the biggest 135er either. So, Istam Grub, shout out to you. I might just start calling you Ivan, because I feel like I've pronounced your name wrong. Istan Grub, but yeah. Well, you spell your name out phonetically for me in the chat so that I know how to pronounce it. I always feel like I'm doing you a disservice, but shout out to you. I can't believe Turkey agreed to it. Hopefully this ends with Eubank here. Philip, all right. This is how the card should go on the night. It should go Alakel, then Whitaker, then Eubank, then Nicholson, Shakur, Opataya, and Wardley Clark. Yeah. The only thing is, I think Shakur, because of the numbers he's done on ESPN previously, he does. It's not a US based card, but he does have a certain level of cachet to him. Plus, he's got great engagement on social media, even whether it's people loving him or hating him. So they might tune in to hope that he gets beat. Whereas Jai is not as active on socials like that. So I don't mind him being the chief support. Although I do understand that, from an entertainment point of view, it probably wouldn't be the best. But yeah, probably maybe he should be third, and then co-main should be Wardley Clark. But I don't think you can justify putting a British title fight ahead of two world title fights. They got away with it for one, but I don't think they could get away with it for two, unfortunately. This card was put together mainly by Spencer Brown. He said in an interview the other day, hopefully normal service will resume. So we're blaming Spencer Brown for the horrendousness of the card. Shout out to Alex Bellotti. I think Cameron ragdolls Whitaker and gives him a hard fight. Maybe. Boxing pound for pound, Jack, shout out to you. Thank you very much for being here. Aaron Daly, I'm happy Wardley and Clark are getting paid well for this fight, but that's another stolen British headliner. I would have definitely attended. Yep, I was at the first one, and I didn't pay to go to the first one, but I definitely would have paid for the second if I didn't get accreditation, 100%. Ra Holcomb in the building. Shout out to you, Ra. Turkey has proven how little he knows about the sport. I mean, there's that as well. As much as he's quote unquote a boxing fan, the amount of times when I've heard someone like Jai say, yeah, he asked me if I could make light heavyweight to fight Bivol. And it's like, do you not see the size of that guy? Like, he walks around at like 100 kg, 104, 5 kg, 220, 225, 230. How is he making light heavyweight? Or, he asked someone else about going down to a mad weight that they've never even seen in their life. It's not even like a weight they used to campaign at. So he does that, and then there's a lot of, he's very reactionary. I will say that. Like, he wouldn't just be able to make like when, for instance, if I've said, okay, I want to see Ben Whitaker against Hot Rod Kalajic, yeah, or a fight like that, or like a David, for instance, maybe like David Morrell against Alexander Vozdik, a fight like that. He can't think of a fight like that. The only fights he really knows is the fights everyone says online. Oh, like, because he was talking about Bacoli and I can't remember who he was mentioned, Bacoli and someone. Then all of a sudden, the big groundswell, which I believe was partially, it was either created by me or I was one of the first people to mention it. But then he starts on the Bacoli versus Zhang, and the Wilder and AJ and all these fights. It's like, and Tank against Inoue, and Tank against Haney, and Shakur and Zepeda. But he's not giving us any fights that no one's thought of. He's only ever speaking about the fights that the whole masses are talking about. So that, to me, I suggest that he probably doesn't have the deepest knowledge that he claims to. He might enjoy the sport, but in terms of what would be good fights, what would be good matches, even the whole, the 5v5, or I love the heavyweight, so it has to be a heavyweight fight, but I'll let you bring someone in. Well, that's not really a part of the game. Like, this is supposed to be brand versus brand, and you're letting a guy bring in ringers just so you can have an extra fight in a weight class that you maybe know the people. And I still believe that he probably told Eddie Hearn that you have to have Deontay Wilder. I'm sorry, I don't think you pick Deontay Wilder coming off of the inactivity and the losses he's had to then go and be in your team and then to be the captain. I don't even think Eddie really chose him to be the captain. I think that was maybe another suggestion. So it's all speculation. Like, I can't prove any of this. Apart from, I do know that, and I got it, Eddie Hearn did actually say on camera that, yeah, they didn't pick certain fights or certain divisions because they knew it wouldn't be competitive. So they had to make competitive fights, which therefore told me it was clearly a mandate that was put down to say that you have to, these fights, they have to be in divisions where it can be chances of a decent fight and not a complete routing. So, Rob, very disappointed that Eubank got on the gravy train after ducking Johnny Beck and Canelo. Yeah, not the greatest. Let's see. What else have we got on here? Mark Comby, shout out to you. I'm a big fan of Eubank. I thought he was going to chase a world title after his last great performance against Smith, but he's still fighting nobodies. So disappointing. And again, if you want to fight nobodies, cool, do your thing, but you don't deserve to be on this card. And one of the reasons why I also don't want to see these fights on the card, and I haven't even, but I'm stating the obvious here. It's an 8-fight card. That ain't finishing till 2:30 in the morning. It's gonna start at about 5 and it's gonna finish at 2:30. Why? Make it a 4-fight card. Make it a 5-fight card. Luckily, there doesn't seem to be any special artists being performing. But the last time they never announced the artists; they just brought them out there. So you never know. Maybe they might end up having an artist come on, but I hope they don't. But it's 8 fights. And there's a lot of those fights where the chances are, even if they get a knockout early, there's still going to be a 45-minute gap before the next fight. That's normally the way that they time it, plus all of the interviews and stuff. I don't need an 8-fight card, especially with 3 on 4 fights on there that are basically they're glorified showcases or knockover jobs. Like, that's long. Only 50-50 fights on the card, the Wardley versus Clark and Raven versus Nico. Are you not including the main event in that? Because that's definitely a 50-50 fight. Or are you just talking about the undercards? If you're talking about the undercards, then fine, I accept that. Right, so here we go. Ratings: Alekel Gonzalez 0. Well, look, I just put it as unrated. I didn't think it was fair to rate that one. I hear you though. Nicholson versus Chapman 9. Okay. Whitaker versus Cameron 3. Opataya versus Massey 7. Woody versus Clark 10. Eubank versus Sarah Matt 2. Stevenson versus Cordina 5. Undisputed 10 out of 10. You know, I can't argue with that card. I would say maybe Cameron and Whitaker should be a little bit higher, but I've got I've got nothing bad to say about that card at all. Rod dug into Canelo for wanting easy fights, then gives Eubank an easy payday. Well, according to him, it was miscommunications by Eddie Hearn. I don't understand how a miscommunication from Eddie Hearn makes you write 2 very, very big and loud social media posts, and all of a sudden that was Eddie's fault. Well, no, he didn't write those posts, but yeah. Isfand, although it's different, but when they send a threatening letter to pay the TV license every single year, that's also a dirty bully tactic. Yeah, I get what you mean. Is Bawatsi on the card? No, Bawatsi's on the card in Wembley. He's facing Hutchinson on the Wembley card the month before. Jonah Bawatsi on. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Mark Cumby. I agree. Some of the things Turkey comes out with, he exposes himself as a total casual. And don't get me wrong, being a casual is great. I'm a casual. I know people say I'm not, but I am, in the sense that I don't watch everything. And I don't know everything about all the history of boxing, but I know enough. I know enough about the history to get by in certain conversations, and I know enough about the people that matter and the people coming up in the new era where I can have debates with anyone. But the reason I call myself the hardcore casual, which you'll probably see in the captions on my channel, is I don't know everything, but what I do know, don't try and test me on, because that's where I excel. So yeah, he did try to make Zoo versus Ortiz. Yeah, but again, he didn't matchmake that. That was a matchmaker came with that fight for him. But it was a brilliant fight. But even him trying to make Ortiz against Crawford, well, why are you trying to make Ortiz versus Crawford when you should be making Crawford versus Fundora or Crawford versus Murtazaliev to get another belt? You know, Crawford should be either in the unification fights or he should be in the main event, you know, against like a Canelo or something, trying to chase that greatness, or maybe trying to chase one of the belts at 160. Virgil Ortiz should be facing Murtazaliev, or, you know, Tim Tszyu, and then the winner faces the winner of Fundora versus Spence, which I believe has now been announced, or it's been agreed to take place in October. I'm assuming it would have to be the end of October, because that's quite early in the, you know, in terms of lead up time. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's where you say Virgil. That's who Virgil Ortiz should be facing. He shouldn't be facing Crawford now. Let him get a belt. If he gets a belt, then you have a unification. Right. Overall, the card is 6 out of 10. 2 duff fights there. Okay. He selects names for his shows. The matchmaking is secondary. Oh yeah, there's that as well. His favorite boxer being Mark Chamberlain told me what I needed to know about Turkey. But you know what? I don't mind that. There's a lot of people that have a favorite boxer you don't really think of, and if that's his favorite for whatever the reason is, that's not a problem. I actually find that a bit refreshing, that he knows like someone as obscure as Mark Chamberlain, and that's who he like enjoys watching. I ain't got no problem with that. But I hear what you're saying in terms of the knowledge. Philip, overall, the undercard of Bivol versus Better Beef is decent from a British point of view. There's some decent fights on it. The Wembley show due to start at 8 a.m. But even the Wembley show ain't got 8 fights on it. I don't believe. I think it's got. Is it got 6 or 7? And I think one of them is like one of those Riyadh showcase fights. But I think it's 6 fights. That's again, even though it can be long because they're like 6, 10, and 12 rounders, but that's not as bad as 8. No one wants to sit through an 8-fight card. It doesn't matter how good the fights are. You don't, unless each fight ends in like the first 3 rounds with a violent knockout, or they're just action-packed from moment after moment, you're gonna get fatigue. That's the same reason why WrestleMania went from being 1 day to 2, because they had all these matches they had to pack into the show, and they knew people's attention spans were starting to wane after the first half. They was putting like 11 and 12 and 13 matches on the card, and the matches weren't getting time to breathe because they just had to get through them in like a 4-hour time period. I remember there was one time they had an event. The event was 7 hours long. The people were dead by the time the main event came around. Now they got WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, and it works perfectly. 4-hour time limits each way, 4 or 5 matches. People are invested. That's just, it just makes sense. The ratings are just based on my excitement for those fights. Okay, so not the actual quality, but fair enough. I hear you. You're not a casual, not even a little bit. I am, man. I'm just a hardcore casual. I know what I know, but I don't know it all. Ortiz should rematch Barchuk. There's no desire to see him against Crawford after that. Turkey doesn't understand these kind of things. Shout out. If he likes Chamberlain, why is he getting him to drop to area level? Don't know. Wembley also has Liam Gallagher performing. Yep, we can't even get like an Eminem or an urban guy. Someone like who's probably like one of the biggest stars in the world right now. It's probably like Central C. I don't know how he managed to get as big as he has, but he's like one. That's who you kind of want if you want to tap into the market. But I guess with this being the UK, Liam Gallagher, I suppose, has some cachet. Although I don't know what kind of sales he's had in the last 5 to 10 years, but okay. Philip, I think it's good that the Better Be versus Bivol fight didn't take place in June, because I think that fight was getting overshadowed by 5v5. I don't think so. I think the 5v5 was just a nice accompaniment to it. The 5v5, if you look at it, it didn't end up doing great business afterwards, because the fact that it did good business from our point of view, that we was invested, but I feel like that fight would have done well on that card. It would have been the garnish on top. And remember, we never saw the trailer for that. That trailer normally gets people invested, so I'm sure that fight would have had its own legacy standing with that card. 8 fight plus fight cards are for small hall 4-rounder shows. 100%. Totally agree with you on that. Base, does Turkey follow you on Twitter? He follows some of our other colleagues. He doesn't follow me yet. I haven't seen it. Any notifications. I'm probably not big enough to be on his radar, but that's fine. I don't need to be. I respect what he's doing. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the fights he's managing to put on, and the fact that he's giving us a lot of fights that we never thought we would get. But at the same time, we're getting too much, which is taken away from everything else. And just look, everyone's complained from that first Ngannou and Fury fight about the length of the cards. So address the length of the cards. That's one of my biggest things. That's why when I looked at this 8-fight card and I saw 3 like nothing fights on there, or what I believe to be nothing fights, they didn't need to be there. You have the one little showcase fight for the Riyadh season prospect, and then you give us 4 top-notch fights on the rest of it, and the other 3, you put them in, they go elsewhere. They go to a Saturday night card at Wembley, at Wembley Arena, the O2. Like I said, in Birmingham, where they're screaming out for these events. That's where you put those fights. So, look, that's my thoughts on all of that. I've got about 10 more minutes on the stream, so if there is anyone, I'm going to put a link in the chat for, I've got 10 minutes before I've got to shoot off, but anyone who wants to jump on and give their opinions, please feel free to do so. Emma, if you want to jump on, I'm desperate to hear your takes, and you know, even though I see them all in the chat. Obviously, there is no you know, it's not mandatory. There's no pressure for anyone who wants to come. You don't have to. Colabello, shout out to you. Bold take. I think Clark gets stopped by Wardley. Okay. I remember the first time I predicted for Fraser Clark to win the fight, and I did actually have him winning the fight. I think I had him winning the fight 113, 112. Because yeah, he lost. I remember he lost a point for the low blow, but I think I still gave him that round. So it was like a 9-9 round, and then obviously the 10-8. But I had him winning, I think 7 or 8 rounds of the fight. But yeah, I didn't think it was. I think he did enough, but the draw was ultimately fine in the end. Shout out to Hot Pipes with the 199 super chat. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for that. I've got a feeling Clark will get over the line this time if he has worked on his stamina. I mean, there's a lot of signs to suggest that he could do. Ultimately, the one thing is though, neither guy can really like. I don't think Fabio Wardley can get like much better in terms of his ability, boxing brain maybe, but the actual abilities, I don't know how much more he's got. And Fraser is, I feel like he's a bit too old to adjust his game. So yeah, it might just be sort of the stamina, maybe trying to pick punches a bit better. So I still think it will be a fairly even fight, but in terms of the boxing skills, like Fraser is the clear superior boxer of the two. Yeah, I've got an ulcer, so it hurts to talk, but I'll jump. Now, if you got an ulcer, Emma, please don't jump. Don't do it on my accord. You can jump on. Oh no, she's here. All right, you know what? Shout out to you. I'm gonna bring you in 1 second. I don't think you can train his gas tank in such a short time. Well, no, I think his gas tank got better from the whack fight to that one, so it's possible. Ra Holcomb with the 499. Shout out to you. Thank you very much for the donation to the channel. Majorly appreciated. Okay, right. Let me just stop this music very quickly because we need to hear what our lovely guest has to say. Emma Willis in the building. Shout out to you.
Hi, Baze.
How are you keeping? And yeah, give us your thoughts.
On what?
Look, so tell me ultimately, right? Give me your score for the overall card of this card, and then tell me your individual scores for the fights.
Do you know what? I'll give it a 5 just because you don't really get 3 50-50s on a card. So I'll give it a 5 for that. I don't really like Ben Whittaker. I feel like, I don't know if it's his style or the lack of trainer, but it's not really entertaining. It's kind of like, there's a lot of questions on Ben Whittaker, and I'm waiting to see it. I think Cameron will show him some problems because he's a bit rugged and rough. So it would be an interesting fight, but I'm just not really a fan of Ben just on the style because I would like to see more. I would like to see him go through the gears. I don't like the showing off and posturing. If you can stop a guy, stop a guy.
Okay.
You know.
I hear that. I respect that.
Sky and Chapman. I don't like Sky. She's just kind of very boring for me. But I would watch this fight because I feel like Chapman should bring out that side of her. But I still feel like Sky would cruise to a clear decision. The thing is, they should have got Sky last year. You should have got her last year, but she's actually improved.
You know what?
Good.
I'm gonna give her credit, right? Because I'm on the same wavelength of you when it comes to Sky. I had high hopes at the start. I fell off the train. I was like, nah, I'm done with this. But in her last fight, I was actually very highly entertained in the last fight, minus maybe the very last round. An interesting take though, which I don't know if I should say, but at the moment, the fight's been signed, so I can kind of say what I want. I've had it on very, very good authority that when Raven Chapman and Sky Nicholson used to be in the gym sparring with each other back in the day, Raven used to beat the brakes off of Sky. And she's not the only one that used to. Apparently, there was a couple others, including Karis Art Install, apparently used to do the same thing. Now, sparring is sparring, and
Yeah,
we don't, we can't take that for everything. But this is what I've heard. So I've heard that those she doesn't like those styles,
yeah.
and they give her a lot of problems. So I just want to kind of put that out there.
But that is very believable. That is very believable. But oh, you know what? I'll take back my like. I don't predict. I'm usually not on spot on, but I'll
Okay.
take my statement back. But that's really interesting. I
Okay.
hope Chapman does it. To be honest, I hope she does. But I just see Sky being Sky.
I hear that. And you know what? I'm not going to, I can't, I haven't made my prediction yet. But as I said, I'm backing Raven. I'm backing my Capricorn compatriot, my fellow. But it's going to be a tough ask for both of them. I think, especially under
Yeah,
the hot lights, I feel that there's, but I do think that Sky is not going to be able to fight the way that she normally fights, and just that's going to be enough. I feel that
yeah.
Raven is smart enough and clever enough to make her have to adapt her game or bring something else out that we haven't seen. That's my opinion on that.
Quick question: how do you rate Sky's gas tank now? And do you think she can fight at a high pace against Chapman?
No, I think that she can, for the first half of the fight, if she's able to control the pace in the first half, I think she can get through the second half comfortable. If she's not able to control the pace and she has to actually work to keep Raven away from her or has to engage in the pocket, she's going to be flagging, I think, after maybe 4 or 5 rounds. We saw that with Tania
Yeah,
Alvarez, who's
yeah,
very, very, very basic, but Raven can apply more pressure and has a better punch system. So Sky being a pure boxer, there's a reason she only likes to throw 1 or 2 punches at
yeah,
a time. It's to manage the rounds. If Raven doesn't let her manage the rounds, then that's where the intrigue happens. So look, that's one of my favorite fights. Even though I know I saw a Hatman video earlier, he literally didn't even mention the fight. Which okay, fair enough. I know some people don't like women's boxing, but I thought that was very disrespectful.
yeah. Sorry, one more quick question.
Go for it.
Raven fought anyone like half as good as a boxer as Sky?
What in terms of an actual a technician?
Yeah, like a preparation for Sky. Has she fought
Uh,
someone that's half as good as Sky?
No, a lot of the people she's fought have been they've either been sort of brawlers, a little bit like her, or they've been high volume. So she hasn't fought anyone with
You
Sky
see,
style as
like
a pro.
that's the thing with Queensberry. They don't prep their fighters for the big fights. They just throw them in. Like you just throw them in. Like Yard, no prep, just throw them in.
Well,
So,
yeah,
you
but
know
yeah, I
what?
think Yard's a bit of a special case. I don't think we can totally blame Queensbury for that.
Yeah, that's true.
I
That's
think there's
true.
other things other factors at play for him. But
Do you know what? It's a 50-50. It's a 50-50.
right. Is there any other fights on there that maybe you've got a slight interest in outside of obviously the main event and Woodley Clark?
No. Like people are like, oh, I don't want to see Shakur fight Cordina. I don't want to see Shakur fight anyone, to be honest. Like Shakur is not entertaining. He's like, I like boxers, but like that Sky level, that Shakur level, I can't take it. Like,
But all right, but that being said, Shakur had a really good fight against Oscar Valdez. He also had a
it's
good
the
fight,
matchmaking he needs.
but that's what I was about to say. So
Yeah,
maybe it's not that you don't want to see him; it's just you need to see him with a certain person that's
yeah,
going to make him have to work. So that's why the Zepeda fight was supposed to be brilliant, because Zepeda, even though Shakur's better technically, Zepeda's just going to be on him. So
yeah,
therefore, it's going to be fun in that way. And if he can't get past that, then we know what the Achilles heel is. But he might be talented enough to be able to stop that. Same way as Floyd used to be talented enough to stop those high volume guys from being able to throw like they wanted to.
yeah. Do you know what? Do you think? Okay, no predictions, but do you think Shakur could hurt Cordina, knowing that he has
Yeah.
a hand issue?
I think it's possible, but it all depends on how much all of that making weight and draining from before has had an effect, and
Yeah,
how we prepares for this one. Because if he does like a big crash to make the weight on this one, even though it's £5 extra, that could be a problem. So Shakur does have enough power to hurt people. He just doesn't really have that get you out of their power unless he's been able to work from round 1 all the way to round 12, or you're just limited. So,
to be fair, I've seen Cordina take good shots, but he looked a bit rattled from Ogawa. Literally before the knockout, I didn't like the way he was looking. I swear, I did not like the way he was looking. Ogawa, Makimov, and obviously what's that guy's name he just lost to?
Oh, Kikachi.
He's resistance. He may have just killed himself. He may just be gone.
Quite possibly. Well, listen, Emma, thank you very much for jumping on. If you got anything else you want to add before I let you go, come and stop streaming in a moment.
Nothing. Boxing sucks this month, so nothing's really going on.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm taking this week off. Look, I appreciate you. Be more content on the channel for the rest of the week. But thank you for coming on, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the chat in future lives.
Always. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Peace out. Oh, okay. Brilliant stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to read the last couple comments and then I'm going to bounce because I got somewhere that I need to go. Just run through a few of these. See what we've got. I think Wardley's nose weren't a mess. It would have been a stoppage win for Wardley. Okay, I hear that. Do you think there's an element of doing favors for certain managers and fighters? How'd Cameron get this big payday otherwise? Possibly. I mean, Hot Pies agrees with Emma 100%. Tiara Brown must be fuming. Well, she will fight the winner. I think that's already been agreed and put in place. And Sky's already said, look, if she beats Raven, she's going straight for Tiara Brown next. So, Muller Team Sky 100%. According to Everything Boxing, Eubank is the biggest favorite at 1-33. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm definitely Team Sky, but it's going to be really difficult. I wonder why the Team Sky. Shout out to you. And Yard was the cockroach that was cornered in Peckham, not JP. Shakur boring fight is perfectly suited to the dead empty arena in Riyadh. Oh, you are really upset with them at this point. But I hear it, I respect it. Colabello, Valdez, Shakur was the best showing of Shakur Stevenson. I remember. Good fight. Oscar didn't want that fight. Yep. Oscar De La Hoya has exposed himself on several occasions as the guy that's blocking the big fights with Golden Boy fighters. Yeah, Shakur can hurt Cordina. Eubank opponents, Camille only lost to Triple G and Mongear a few years ago. Yes, I mentioned that earlier. But who else has he faced? He hasn't faced anyone of even a similar level of competition apart from those people. So you get knocked out by obviously Triple G, who was the best, and then you get knocked out by Mongear, who was a decent upper level. But, you know, is what it is. Do you think Johnny Fisher can improve much? I wouldn't say much, but he can improve. He can definitely get to British level. Whether we can get above that is a different thing altogether. Evening to Clyde, but you're a bit late. But yeah, look, everyone, shout out to you. Thank you very much for jumping on. I need to get out of here. It's been great. It's been fun as always. I will be back with another. I might do a live stream over the weekend, maybe for those who just want to do that. There's going to be episodes this week because I've got a bit of time. So with that being said, everyone, I'll speak to you soon. And for right now, the Hardcore Casual out. Maybe I'm a man.